This is the brand new Toyota Corolla. It's actually replacing the Auris, but Toyota has decided to bring back the Corolla name, which by the way is the best-selling car in history. And it's decided to rebrand, partly because the previous Auris wasn't a particularly inspiring family car. This fresh start for the Corolla name represents a complete ground-up reworking of the Auris. It's now on a new platform, which means new suspension and new steering. It also gets new styling and, perhaps most significant of all, it is now available with two much improved hybrid systems. Being a family car, there are loads of brilliant rivals that it's up against, like the Ford Focus and the Volkswagen Golf. But as a hybrid, there aren't actually that many brilliant competitors. And it feels like the world is crying out for an excellent hybrid car that isn't just efficient, but also a great package overall. And the Corolla could be the answer. And in this video, we're going to tell you why. But before we do, go to whatcar.com and head to the new car buying section to find the best deals on every new car. And subscribe to our channel to keep up to speed with the latest new car reviews. The Corolla is a fine example of how Toyota is injecting new life into its latest new car designs. So you can see, it's actually a pretty cool looking thing. You've got some nice sharp headlights and loads of angular lines all over the front. I think it's cool, but looks is subjective. So we want to know what you think. Click on the banner in the top right hand corner of your screen to tell us what you think looks better. The Toyota Corolla, Ford Focus, Volkswagen Golf, or Hyundai Ioniq. And inside you can see the Corolla is different as well. If you remember the previous Auris, it wasn't a particularly inspiring interior to sit in. So it was made of rough plastics, it was a bit dull, kind of soulless. But now with the Corolla, it's generally much plusher throughout, sleeker and more interesting to look at. And also the materials used throughout the entire interior are on a par with the Volkswagen Golf. And what's really good is it just feels really solid and built to last. This driver display setup comes as standard on all Corollas, and it's made up of these two analog dials either side of a digital screen in the middle. And you can control that screen with these buttons on the steering wheel, but it shows things like trip information, phone, audio, things like that, but it's a little limited. So it's not as configurable as the system that you get in a Volkswagen Golf. Now, the infotainment system. Let's start with the positives. So, you get an 8-inch touchscreen, which is positioned helpfully high up on the dashboard. And also you get physical shortcut buttons. So that means that it's all within reach and easy to use when you're driving. However, what is very distracting is the complicated layout and the really laggy response times. And if you look, you can see the resolution is really, really poor. And on the sat-nav screen, it's really cluttered. All the graphics are really close together and it's just awkward to look at. So it's really distracting, complicated, and just generally frustrating, and nowhere near what you get in a Golf or an Octavia or even a Ford Focus. On top of all that, you can't even get Apple CarPlay or Android Auto even as an option, so you're stuck with Toyota's iffy software. But what you do get as standard are DAB radio, Bluetooth, and a USB socket down there. Space-wise, you won't struggle to fit in the front of the Corolla, even if you're an especially tall driver, and the driving position generally is very good. However, the range of adjustment in the steering wheel is a bit limited compared to what its rivals can do. It's still fine for most people, but the in and out isn't quite as generous as it is on other cars. But there is a more pressing first world problem with the driving position. So to adjust the angle of your backrest in the driver's seat, you've got to lift this lever and then shift your weight forwards and backwards until you find the position that works for you, which is pretty old school. And in a Focus or a Golf, they offer a much simpler dial, which you can twist to fine tune your position. The door pockets are a bit on the small side, but you've got other storage options up front as well. So let me give you a quick tour. We've got the twin cup holders here, and then you've got a space for your phone under the dash there, which is a bit of an awkward position, and also the back of it's angled up quite high, which is a bit weird. But you also have this storage compartment. Now this feels a bit on the flimsy side, but inside the storage is okay. It's a bit shallow, but you've got a 12-volt socket and another USB port there as well. And the glove box is a good size. Rear space is actually one of the weakest points of the Corolla. So that curving roofline that looks nice on the outside, inside it slopes down in front of you and to the side. So it means it feels really cramped, and you can see headroom is pretty tight. Legroom's okay, but in the back, in this class, it's only actually the Peugeot 308 that's more cramped than the Corolla. A Focus, a Golf, an Octavia, they all offer much more room for passengers in the back. The rear seats don't recline or do anything else particularly clever really, but they don't in the Corolla's rivals either. The seats do fold with a 60-40 split, as you might expect. Just how practical the Corolla's boot is depends entirely on which model you choose. We've got the 1.8 litre hybrid version here. Now, you can see the boot is a good size, and in fact, it's so good you can fit 6 carry-on size suitcases in, which is more than you can get in a Volkswagen Golf, but both cars are much smaller than the enormous Skoda Octavia, which is basically like a limo in this class. But in the 1.8 litre, there's a bit of a lip at the front, which you get in the 1.2 litre petrol boot as well, and the rear seats fold, but they don't fold flat. So there's this huge step in the boot floor as well. And annoyingly, you can't buy a height adjustable boot floor on any model, so that's just something you've got to live with. But at least the boot space you're given is very good. However, if you go for a 2 litre hybrid Corolla, then the boot becomes so small that it's actually smaller than some cars in the class below. Now let me explain. The reason for that is it gets a bigger engine, which means under the bonnet, there's not actually enough room to fit the battery as well. So the battery has to go somewhere, and Toyota have put it in the boot, and that greatly reduces the boot size. So if you go for more power in the 2 litre hybrid, just be aware that you're going to be losing a lot of boot space. However, what you really want to know is just how efficient is the hybrid Corolla, and how do the numbers stack up if you're running one? Well, these are the key things that you need to know about buying and owning a Toyota Corolla. The Corolla is incredibly frugal, especially around town. With this 1.8 litre engine, we managed to achieve 60 miles per gallon in real-world driving conditions. It also has incredibly low CO2 emissions. However, a high P11D value means some less expensive petrol and diesel family cars can be cheaper as a company car. And if you're a private buyer, then it's expensive compared to rivals as well. The same goes for buying on a PCP finance deal. So go to whatcar.com and make sure you're getting the best deal. It might be expensive, but it is stacked with kit. Every Corolla comes with a reversing camera, and even entry-level Icon trim comes with dusk sensing headlights, dual zone climate control, adaptive cruise control, heated front seats, and 16-inch alloy wheels. We reckon Icon Tech is the one to go for, keeping the price relatively low while adding things like sat-nav and parking sensors. These powerful LED headlights are fitted as standard across the range, and they're great. In most rivals, you'll either have to pay extra for them or upgrade to a posh trim level. Euro NCAP is yet to crash test the Corolla, but it's highly likely to score the full 5-star safety verdict. That's because automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist, traffic sign recognition, and automatic high beam assist are all standard, which is very impressive. But it's a bit strange that blind spot monitoring isn't available, even as an option. Toyota's reliability record is truly outstanding. It ranked 3rd out of 31 manufacturers in our latest reliability survey, so you hopefully won't have to visit the garage too much. Now, you can get a 1.2 litre petrol engine in the Corolla, but Toyota reckons 90% of buyers are going to go for one of the 2 hybrid options that are available. We're in the 1.8 litre hybrid, which actually is the same unit that you can get in the Prius. While some hybrids, if they're plug-in hybrids, you have to charge them up from the mains to get the best out of them, the Corolla takes care of all that complicated business itself. So you can drive it like a normal petrol or diesel car, filling it up when you need to, and the car itself will charge the battery, and it does that when you brake. It uses that energy to help charge the battery, and it will also decide when to use the electric motor to help improve efficiency or improve performance. There are a couple of things you can control yourself though. You can put it in EV mode, but you can only do that at low speeds, really around town, and also it will only go into electric mode if there's enough charge left in the battery. This engine has 120 brake horsepower and claimed economy of up to 65.9 miles per gallon. So you can guess what its priorities are. Outright pace is not the strength of this engine, but there are definitely things to like about it, mainly those economy figures. It also gets a continuously variable transmission, which is very different to a manual or a normal automatic gearbox. So instead of increasing speed by ticking up ratios one by one, the CVT will spin the engine at the optimum speed required for whatever acceleration you're asking for it. So this CVT is much better than other examples that are around, but it still means when you're going uphill or when you're accelerating like we are here, the revs are always flaring and it does become quite noisy. But at least the petrol engine that it's paired with is pretty smooth, and actually when you're just cruising around gently, not asking a lot of it, then it is very quiet. The 2 litre engine is the best to drive in the range, and it comes with acoustic glass which helps make it quieter inside. But that's not the whole story. It's more expensive, and as we've mentioned, you lose a lot of boot space. So, given that the 1.8 is cheaper and more efficient, that is our pick of the range. One of the best things about the Toyota Corolla is just how comfy it is. So along with the Volkswagen Golf, it's one of the comfiest family hatchbacks around. The steering is also pretty accurate, but if you're after a proper driver's car, then a Ford Focus just steers better and it's generally more agile. The Corolla is geared more towards being easy to drive rather than entertaining. But when the result is something that's as sure-footed as this and as comfortable, then you can't help but think Toyota's engineers have made a good compromise. The Hyundai Ioniq and Toyota Prius have odd shapes and small boots and aren't that brilliant to drive. But the Corolla is a good car, first and foremost, that's good to drive and is very practical. So it's nowhere near as compromised as any other hybrid, and that's what makes it so impressive. The Toyota Corolla is a great family car, with hybrid versions that offer exceptionally low running costs. It isn't perfect. The infotainment system is average at best. Rear seat space is a little stingy, and a Ford Focus is a better driver's car. On the plus side, it benefits from Toyota's outstanding reliability record. It's incredibly comfy, and it gets lots of standard equipment as well. We wouldn't just say that the Toyota Corolla is a great hybrid family car. We'd say it's the best hybrid car, full stop. So if you're looking to buy a new Corolla or any of its rivals, head to whatcar.com, where we can hopefully save you thousands on your next new car. But before you go, make sure you're subscribed to the What Car channel to keep up to speed with the latest new car reviews.